something I think we misunderstand a lot in regards to faith when it comes to trusting in God through all kinds of situations. We're not supposed to have a blind faith. And what I mean by that is we're not supposed to just trust God and we don't have any reason to. We just trust and hope for the best. It's not supposed to be that way. And Scripture doesn't tell us to have that kind of blind faith. We actually are told to look and test, and we are told to look back and look at the reasons, see what God has done in the past, and see what He'll do in the future. Know that He is faithful. And so it makes me think, when I see verses like this one we're going to look at today, it actually makes me more hopeful. When we look at James chapter 1, starting verse 2, it says this: "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Perseverance, real quick. Think of a muscle. Think of your faith being like a muscle, and then you're about to run a marathon. All right. Now, it's not a sprint. It's not you're going to be like and then you're done. No, this is something you're going to be running, and you need longevity. You need to make it through a bunch of different turns and things like this, and you don't want to run out of steam. And so what these trials do is they strengthen your muscle. The perseverance is stamina. It gives you strength to carry on past all these different kinds of trials. And so what these trials do, and he says, count it all joy, because these trials are opportunities. And when I think of this, when I hear trials or opportunities, the first thing that comes to my mind is the nation of Israel. And back when they had just come out of slavery in Egypt, they were enslaved in Egypt for hundreds of years. Finally, God rescues them. He sends Moses, the Ten Commandments, all that kind of stuff happens. All right, and then they go into the wilderness. God had planned to send them into the promised land, but there was a lot of enemies there. There was a lot of things that they were going to have to do. They were going to represent God to the nations, and they were going to be God's people there, but they weren't ready yet. They were going to have to do a lot of fighting, but they weren't ready yet. But their faith wasn't ready either. God is going to instead send them in the wilderness for 40 years. But catch this. It's not going to be just a nice day camping trip just out there in the wilderness. God intentionally led them in the desert, in places where there was no water. And God is leading them everywhere He goes. So think about this. God is leading them in places where there is no water. And what do? They start to grumble. They complain against Moses. They complain against God. And God doesn't let them die of thirst. He leads them to water, or sometimes He does something miraculous. Like He'll make water come out of a rock or something. And He does that. And sometimes He leads them to places where there's no food. The soil, they can't grow crops, there's nowhere to hunt food, and so they're starving, and they feel like, oh, we're going to die. It was better for us to go back to Egypt. At least we had food there. Yeah, we were slaves, but there was food there. And they're complaining again. And then God sends them this bread from heaven. It falls out of the sky. It's called manna. Manna just is a word that they invented. It means, what is it? They didn't even know what it's called. It's this bread they've never seen before, and God has it fall out of the sky, and they gather it up. They can only gather enough for one day. They gather enough for two, it'll spoil. But God is teaching them to rely on Him for their daily bread, literally their daily bread. And so they go from place to place, and God is sending them trials. He's giving them hard situations, but the whole time He's doing so to strengthen their faith. He wants them to have perseverance, because He knows He's preparing them for a time when they're going to go in and fight a bunch of battles, and they're going to represent God to the nations. He's got something planned for them, but He has to prepare them first. And so finally, God gets them prepared after 40 years. A whole generation of people die off before the people are ready. So now Moses is giving over the reins, the leadership to Joshua. He's going to take the people in. And they're going to the Jordan River, the boundary of the Promised Land. They're about to cross in, and something happens. Just as God had done when they left Egypt for the first time. As free people, God sent them their first trial, and it was when they got to the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army coming after them to kill them and to bring them back into slavery. God had put them against the Red Sea, and they're like, well, we can't swim it, we can't build boats, we can't go around it, we're going to die. And God parts the waters, and He lets them walk right in the middle of it. 40 years has gone by. God has used trials to strengthen their faith, to prepare them for what they're about to do, this mission that they're going to do. And now they're going into the Promised Land, and to book in their trials, they go to the Jordan River, and God parts it. That God parts it, and with the Ark of the Covenant, with the law inside of it and everything leading ahead of them, they walk across on dry land, and they walk into that Promised Land. And something happens right after they get across. I want to read to you that is important. Because they do this, God gives instructions to Joshua on what to do next. And it's in Joshua chapter 4, starting in verse 2. God tells Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe. Tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing. Carry them over with you to put them down at the place where you stay tonight. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. God wanted them to remember what He had done for them, because there's more hard times coming. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of years of trials that God is going to put them through to test their faith over and over again, because it's never ending. Why we're still here on earth and why we still got breath in our lungs and we're still living this life, there's going to be trials. Until we are absent of the body, we're home to be with the Lord, there's going to be trials in our life. There's going to be hard times that come. But count it all joy, because it's for our faith. It's to grow our faith. It's for to strengthen us to endure, and for our endurance, because you never know. There may be a reason for it. It may be because God has something planned. He may be putting you through a workout. He may be sending you all these trials because He wants to get you strong. Because He's about to send you to fight. He's about to send you to represent. Right now you're not ready, but you're going to be. He's going to give you opportunities to strengthen your faith. Every trial is an opportunity. What you do with that opportunity is up to you.